In the scorched edges of Arizona territory, where a woman's worth was measured by the children she could bear, Cassie Dunn became damaged goods when doctors declared her barren. So her father did what any practical man would do in 1880.
You sold me for the price of 2 horses.
I didn't buy a wife, Miss Dunn. I bought a mother for my boy.
In the scorched edges of Arizona territory, where a woman's worth was measured by the children she could bear, Cassie Dunn became damaged goods when doctors declared her barren. So her father did what any practical man would do in 1880.
You didn't buy much, you know.
What I got was worth more than I knew.
Now as the banker's son returns to claim what he once discarded and their land hangs in the balance, Luke must decide if he'll fight for more than just his ranch, and Cassie must discover if a woman deemed worthless might be the most valuable thing a man has ever found. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The midday sun beat down on Copper Creek as Cassie Dunn stood in her father's small parlor, her hands folded tight enough to leave marks on her skin. Her father, James Dunn, was counting money at the table while another man stood by the window, his hat in his hands. $20 for the 2 colts, her father said, sliding the bills into his pocket. And she comes with a trunk of clothes and knows her letters. That should be enough. Cassie kept her eyes on the worn floorboards. She was 25 years old, and today she was being traded away like livestock. She'll have a roof and food, the stranger said. His voice was deep but not unkind, and my boy needs looking after. Cassie finally looked up. The man was tall and weathered, with dark hair that needed cutting, and eyes the color of the sky after a storm. He wasn't handsome like Thomas, the banker's son who'd courted her before the doctor's verdict, but he stood straight, and his gaze didn't slide away from hers. Luke McKenna, he said with a small nod. My ranch is a day's ride west. It ain't much to look at, but it's mine. Her father cleared his throat. You understand her condition? Luke's jaw tightened. I ain't looking for more children. I got Sam. What I need is someone to care for him while I work the land. Cassie felt the familiar shame wash over her. Barren. The word that had changed everything. When Thomas found out, he'd looked at her like she was diseased. His father had torn up the engagement papers that same day. A woman who couldn't bear children wasn't worth much in Copper Creek. I'll get my things, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. An hour later, she sat beside Luke McKenna in his wagon, her trunk tied down in the back, watching her childhood home disappear around the bend. She didn't cry. She'd done enough of that these past months. I'm sorry about this arrangement, Luke said after they'd been traveling a while. I know it ain't what a woman dreams of. Cassie looked at the endless horizon. Dreams don't mean much out here. Maybe not. He handled the reins with easy confidence. But you should know I don't expect. That is, you'll have your own space if you want it. She turned to him surprised. But we're to be married. On paper, yes. The preacher will meet us at the ranch tomorrow. He kept his eyes on the trail ahead. But I won't force nothing on you. You've been forced enough already. They rode in silence after that, the only sounds the creak of the wagon and the steady beat of the horses' hooves against the dusty ground. The McKenna Ranch appeared as the sun was setting, a plain house with a large barn surrounded by stretches of grazing land. It wasn't impressive like the banker's house in town, but it was solid, real. A Mexican man came out to greet them. Boss, welcome back. His eyes moved curiously to Cassie. Miguel, this is Miss Dunn. She's going to be Mrs. McKenna come tomorrow. Luke jumped down from the wagon and came around to help her down. Where's Sam? Inside with Rosa. She fed him already. Luke nodded. Take Miss Dunn's trunk to the main bedroom. I'll be sleeping in the bunkhouse till things get settled. Cassie felt a flutter of relief mixed with confusion. He really meant to give her space. The inside of the house was simple but clean. A woman was wiping down a table in the kitchen, while a small boy sat drawing with a piece of charcoal on an old slate. Sam, Luke said softly, and the boy's head snapped up. He was small for 5, with his father's dark hair and solemn eyes. He stared at Cassie without speaking. This is Miss Dunn, Luke said. She's going to stay with us now. She'll be looking after you. Sam's gaze was unnerving. He didn't smile or speak, just watched her like he was waiting for something. Hello, Sam. Cassie said, trying to sound cheerful. "I'm happy to meet you." The boy looked back down at his slate. The Mexican woman wiped her hands on her apron. "I'm Rosa," she said with a warm smile. "Miguel's wife. We live just over the hill. I help with the boy when I can." "Rosa's been a godsend since Sarah died," Luke explained. "Sam's mother," he added when he saw Cassie's questioning look. "Fever took her 2 winters ago," Rosa said quietly. "The boy hasn't been the same since." Later, after Rosa and Miguel left, Cassie found herself alone with Luke and Sam in the unfamiliar house. Luke showed her around: the kitchen, the small sitting room with books stacked on a shelf, and the bedroom that would be hers. "It was Sarah's," he said, his voice tight. "I moved my things to the small room, but you should have this one. It's bigger." The room held a large bed with a quilt, a dresser with a mirror, and a rocking chair by the window. On the dresser sat a hairbrush and a small bottle of perfume, as if the woman who owned them might return any moment. "I can clear her things," Luke said, noticing Cassie's gaze. "I should have done it before now." "No," Cassie said quickly. "Not on my account. Not until you're ready." Something like gratitude flickered in his eyes. That night, after a quiet supper where Sam ate without looking up and Luke tried to fill the silence with talk of the ranch, Cassie lay awake in Sarah's bed. The sheets smelled of lavender soap. Rosa's doing, probably. She stared at the ceiling, wondering what Sarah had been like, and if she could ever fill the hole she'd left in this family. She thought of Thomas and the life she'd almost had. Fine dresses, social gatherings in town, the respect that came with marrying into money. But then the doctor had examined her after months of no pregnancy and declared her barren, likely from the fever she'd had as a girl. And Thomas had looked at her differently after that, like she wasn't whole anymore. Her father had been angry. "What good is a daughter who can't give me grandchildren?" he'd shouted. And then he'd arranged this match with a widowed rancher who needed a mother for his son, but not a woman to bear more children. She'd been sold for the price of 2 colts. The next morning, Cassie woke to the smell of coffee. She dressed quickly in one of her simple dresses and pinned her hair up before venturing to the kitchen. Luke was already gone, but a plate of biscuits sat on the table beside a cup of coffee. Sam sat at the table watching her. "Good morning, Sam," she said. "Did your father leave already?" Sam nodded once. "He's always up before the sun," came a voice, and Cassie turned to see Rosa entering through the back door with a basket of eggs. "Left you breakfast, though. That's new." Cassie sat at the table and took a sip of the coffee. It was strong, but good. "He said the preacher's coming today," Rosa continued, setting the eggs on the counter. "For the wedding." Wedding? The word felt strange. This wasn't a wedding like she'd dreamed of as a girl. There would be no white dress, no flowers, no celebration, just a business arrangement sealed with words before God. The preacher arrived after midday, a thin man with spectacles who didn't bother to hide his curiosity about the hasty union. Luke came in from the fields, his shirt damp with sweat and washed up before changing into a clean shirt. They stood in the small sitting room, with Sam watching from the corner and Rosa and Miguel as witnesses. The words were the same ones Cassie had heard at other weddings, about love and honor and cherishing. Luke's voice was steady when he repeated them. Cassie's trembled only slightly. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife, Luke didn't kiss her. He simply took her hand for a moment, his calloused palm warm against hers, and nodded. It was done. She was Cassie McKenna now. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Luke was up and gone before dawn each day, leaving coffee and sometimes biscuits for her. He'd return at midday for a quick meal, then work until sunset. Sam watched her constantly, never speaking much, but following her around the house like a shadow. She learned the routines of the ranch, when to expect the cattle to be moved, how Miguel managed the 2 hired hands who worked the farthest pastures, when Rosa would come to help with washing or canning. She cooked and cleaned and tried to coax words from Sam. At night, Luke would sit in the main room and go over his ledgers or read one of his books while she sewed or mended. They rarely spoke beyond the necessities. He kept his promise about her space. He slept in the bunkhouse with the hands, coming to the main house only during the day. They were married only on paper. One evening, about 2 weeks after her arrival, Cassie was hanging washing on the line when she noticed Sam sitting on the porch steps, watching her with those solemn eyes. "Would you like to help?" she asked, expecting him to shake his head as he usually did when she offered him tasks. But to her surprise, he stood and came over. "You can hand me the wet clothes," she said, showing him the basket. Silently, he began to pass her items: a shirt of Luke's, one of his own small shirts, a dish towel. His small face was serious as he concentrated on the task. "Thank you, Sam," she said when they finished. "You're a good helper." He looked up at her, and for the first time, his expression softened. Not quite a smile, but something close. That night at supper, he sat next to her instead of by his father. "He's taking to you," Luke said later after Sam had gone to bed. He looked surprised and perhaps a little sad. "He hasn't let anyone close since Sarah died." "He's a sweet boy," Cassie said. "Just hurt and scared, I think." Luke nodded, studying his hands. "I haven't known what to do for him. I can run this ranch, work from sunup to sundown, but I don't know how to help him with his grief." "You've kept him fed and safe," Cassie said. "That's no small thing." Their eyes met across the table, and for a moment something passed between them, an understanding perhaps. They were two people trying to make the best of broken pieces. A week later, Cassie was in the garden picking beans when she heard the sound of approaching horses. Looking up, she saw 3 riders coming toward the house. Her heart jumped when she recognized the man in front. Thomas Wilcox, the banker's son, her former fiancé. Luke was out checking the north pasture. Miguel was in town for supplies. She was alone with Sam, who was napping inside. She straightened her back and waited as the men dismounted. "Cassie?" Thomas said, his handsome face breaking into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Look at you playing ranch wife." "What do you want, Thomas?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron. "I was passing by, thought I'd check on you." He glanced at the modest house. "So this is what you settled for?" The 2 men with him, one she recognized as his cousin Peter, the other a stranger, snickered. "I didn't settle," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "This is my home now, my husband's land." Thomas's smile faltered. "Husband. That's a generous word for a man who bought you for the price of 2 horses. Shame burned through her, but she held her ground. "You should leave." Thomas stepped closer. "You know, it's funny. After all that fuss about you being barren, it turns out Eliza can't have children either." Eliza Grant, the mayor's daughter, who he'd turned to after breaking their engagement. "Makes me think I was hasty in letting you go." Fear prickled along Cassie's spine. "You need to leave now." Thomas reached out and touched her cheek. She jerked away. "Maybe your husband would sell you back," he said, his voice low. "My father's bank holds notes on half the ranches around here, including this one, I'd wager." "Step away from my wife." The voice came from behind her, and Cassie turned to see Luke dismounting from his horse, his face hard as stone. She hadn't heard him approach. Thomas's smile returned. "McKenna. Just the man I wanted to see. I think we have business to discuss." Luke moved to stand beside Cassie. "The only business we have is you trespassing on my land and bothering my family." "Family?" Thomas laughed. "Is that what you call this arrangement? You bought a barren woman to care for your brat because no respectable widow would take you on." Luke's hand went to the gun at his hip, but Cassie touched his arm. "Don't," she whispered. "It's not worth it." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Luke took a deep breath. "Get off my land," he said evenly. "And don't come back." Thomas hesitated, then shrugged. "This isn't over, McKenna. A man should know when he's bought damaged goods." The 3 men mounted up and rode away, dust rising behind them. When they were out of sight, Cassie's knees nearly buckled. Luke caught her arm, steadying her. "Are you all right?" he asked, his eyes searching her face. She nodded, though she felt anything but all right. "I'm sorry about that." "You've got nothing to be sorry for." His voice was gentle. "Come inside. You're shaking." Inside, he poured her a small glass of whiskey from a bottle he kept high on a shelf. "Drink it," he said. "It'll help with the shock." She took a small sip, the liquor burning her throat. "He said the bank holds notes on this ranch." Luke's face darkened. "They do. But I'm not behind on payments. Thomas Wilcox is just trying to scare us." "He's angry," Cassie said. "Angry that his new wife can't have children either. And now he thinks he made a mistake with me." She gave a bitter laugh. "As if I'd ever go back to him." Luke sat across from her. "Did you love him?" The question surprised her. "I thought I did. Before I learned I couldn't have children. He seemed so perfect then. The future all laid out bright and shining." She shook her head. "But he showed his true self when things got hard." Luke nodded slowly. "A man reveals himself in difficult times, that's certain." They sat in silence for a moment. "I should check on Sam," Cassie said finally, setting down the glass. As she stood, Luke caught her hand. His touch was warm and sent an unexpected flutter through her. "Cassie," he said, his voice low. "What he said about you being damaged goods, that's not true. Not to me." She looked down at their joined hands, then up at his face. Earnest, concerned. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, for the first time since their paper marriage began, Luke didn't go to the bunkhouse. Instead, he slept on a bedroll in the main room, his gun within reach, protecting what was his. The weeks that followed Thomas's visit brought changes to the McKenna ranch. Luke no longer slept in the bunkhouse. Instead, he made his bed each night in the small room off the kitchen that had once been a pantry. He was taking no chances with Thomas Wilcox and his threats. But it wasn't just sleeping arrangements that changed. Something had shifted between Luke and Cassie. At breakfast, their eyes would meet over coffee cups. When she handed him his lunch pail before he headed out to the pastures, their fingers would brush. Small moments that left Cassie's heart beating faster. One morning, as Cassie was hanging laundry, Luke approached leading a gentle brown mare. "Thought you might want to learn to ride," he said, patting the horse's neck. "This is Daisy. She's older, but she's steady." Cassie looked at the mare with uncertainty. "I've never been on a horse before." "Every ranch wife should know how," Luke said. Then, catching himself, he added, "Might be useful if you need to get to town or find me in the pastures." Cassie nodded, touching Daisy's soft nose. "All right, show me." Luke's hands were strong and sure as he helped her into the saddle, explaining how to hold the reins, how to use her knees to guide the horse. His touch on her waist as he steadied her sent warmth spreading through her body. "There you go," he said as she sat straight in the saddle. "You're a natural." She wasn't, of course. She was stiff and nervous, but his encouragement made her want to try harder. He led Daisy in a slow circle around the yard, and Cassie gradually relaxed. "Can I watch?" came a small voice, and they both turned to see Sam standing on the porch, his slate forgotten in his hands. "Course you can, son," Luke said, his face lighting up at Sam's interest. "Come on over." To Cassie's surprise, Sam hurried down the steps and came to stand beside his father, watching her with curious eyes. "Miss Cassie's learning to ride," Luke explained. "Just like you did last year." "I can ride faster now," Sam said, speaking more words at once than Cassie had ever heard from him. "Is that so?" she asked, smiling down at him. "Maybe you can show me sometime." Sam nodded, a hint of pride in his solemn face. Later that afternoon, after Luke had gone back to work and Cassie was kneading bread dough in the kitchen, Sam appeared at her elbow. "Pa says you're my new ma," he said suddenly. Cassie's hands stilled in the dough. She looked down at the boy's serious face. "Well, I'm married to your pa now, but I know I'm not your real ma." Sam considered this. "My real ma died." "Yes, I know," Cassie said gently. "I'm sorry about that." "I don't remember her much." His voice was small, just that she sang at night. Cassie felt her heart squeeze. "Would you like me to sing to you sometimes?" Sam shrugged, but he stayed close to her side as she finished the bread. That night, when she tucked him into bed, she sang a simple lullaby her own mother had sung to her. Sam watched her face the whole time, his eyes heavy with sleep by the time she finished. "Night, Ma," he mumbled as he drifted off. Cassie froze, her hand still smoothing his hair. "Ma." The word both warmed and terrified her. She wasn't sure she deserved it. When she came out to the main room, Luke was at the table going over his ledger. He looked up when she entered. "He called me Ma," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Luke set down his pencil. "Does that bother you?" "No," she said quickly. "No, it's just, I don't want to replace Sarah in his mind." "You're not replacing her," Luke said. "You're just filling an empty space he's had, giving him something he needs." Their eyes met across the table, and Cassie wondered if Luke was talking about more than just his son. The next day, a letter arrived from the bank in town. Luke read it with a deepening frown. "What is it?" Cassie asked, worry creeping into her voice. "Bank's calling in part of my loan early," he said, his jaw tight. "Says there's some new policy, but I reckon Thomas Wilcox had something to do with it." "Can you pay it?" Luke folded the letter carefully. "If I sell some cattle early, maybe, but prices are low right now with the drought. And if I sell too many, I won't have enough for breeding come spring." Cassie sat across from him. "What can I do to help?" He looked surprised at the question, as if he wasn't used to having someone to share his burdens. "Nothing to be done, really. Just tighten our belts and hope for rain." But Cassie wasn't willing to sit idly by. The next day, while Luke was checking fence lines in the north pasture, she rode Daisy into town with a basket of eggs and a crock of butter. Rosa had mentioned that the mercantile sometimes bought such things, and Cassie figured every little bit would help. Copper Creek looked different to her now. The main street that had once seemed so impressive now looked dusty and small compared to the open beauty of the ranch. She tied Daisy to the hitching post outside the mercantile and straightened her simple dress before going inside. Mrs. Peterson, the mercantile owner's wife, looked up in surprise when Cassie entered. "Well, if it isn't the new Mrs. McKenna. Heard you'd gotten married. Quite sudden, wasn't it?" There was a hint of gossip in her tone, but Cassie kept her head high. "Yes, it was. I've brought some eggs and butter to sell if you're buying." Mrs. Peterson examined the offerings with a critical eye. "Eggs look small, but I can give you 50 cents for the lot." It wasn't much, but Cassie nodded. "Thank you." As Mrs. Peterson counted out the coins, the bell over the door jingled. Cassie turned to see Eliza Wilcox, formerly Eliza Grant, now Thomas's wife, entering the store. Eliza was everything Cassie was not, fashionably dressed, with golden curls arranged perfectly under her hat. Her eyes widened when she spotted Cassie. "Cassie Dunn," she said, then corrected herself with a smirk. "Or I suppose it's Cassie McKenna now." "Eliza," Cassie replied with a nod. "How are you?" "Quite well. Town life agrees with me." Eliza looked Cassie up and down, taking in her simple dress and work-roughened hands. "Though I hear ranch life suits you. Thomas mentioned he saw you recently." "He trespassed on our land," Cassie said evenly. "He wasn't welcome." Eliza's smile tightened. "Yes, well, Thomas has business with many of the ranchers these days. His father is grooming him to take over the bank, you know." "Good for him," Cassie said, pocketing her coins. "If you'll excuse me, I should be getting back." But Eliza blocked her path. "I hear your marriage was arranged." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Is it true he bought you for the price of 2 horses?" Heat rushed to Cassie's face. Behind the counter, Mrs. Peterson was clearly listening, though pretending to arrange canned goods. "My marriage is none of your concern," Cassie said. "It's just that Thomas was so upset when he found out I couldn't have children either," Eliza continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "He said if he'd known, he might have kept you instead. Saved himself the trouble of breaking in a new wife." Cassie felt as if she'd been slapped. "Excuse me," she said stiffly, pushing past Eliza to the door. "Give my regards to your cowboy," Eliza called after her. "I hear the bank is quite interested in his property. Thomas says it would make a fine place for summer gatherings once it's properly developed." Outside, Cassie untied Daisy with shaking hands. The encounter had left her rattled, but also angry. Thomas and the bank were clearly targeting Luke's ranch, and for what? Spite? Greed? As she rode home, her mind raced. The 50 cents in her pocket felt pathetic now, a drop in the bucket against the forces aligned against them. When she arrived back at the ranch, Luke was in the yard talking to Miguel. He looked up in surprise when he saw her. "Where'd you go?" he asked, concern in his voice. To town, to sell some eggs and butter. She dismounted, more confidently than she had just a week ago. Luke, we need to talk about the bank and Thomas Wilcox. Inside, she told him about her encounter with Eliza and the thinly veiled threats. They want the ranch, she finished. I don't know why, but they do. Luke ran a hand through his hair. The water rights, most likely. My land has the best access to Copper Creek itself. In a drought like this, that's worth more than gold. What can we do? Luke looked tired. Keep working. Pay what we can. Hope they don't find a way to take it legally. And if they do? He met her eyes. Then we fight. The drought worsened as summer wore on. The creek that gave the town its name shrank to a trickle, and the grass in the pastures turned brown and sparse. Luke worked from dawn until well after dark, moving cattle to the few areas that still had decent grazing, digging deeper into the well when the water level dropped. Cassie did what she could, cutting back on water use in the house, helping Rosa preserve vegetables from the garden while they still had them, taking over more chores so Luke could focus on the cattle. And through it all, Sam watched and listened, his small face growing more solemn as he sensed the worry around him. One night after Sam was asleep, Luke and Cassie sat at the kitchen table, a lamp burning low between them. Luke was going over his accounts again, his face grim. It's not enough, he said finally, closing the ledger. Even if I sell 20 head now, I can't make the payment the bank's asking for. Cassie reached across the table and laid her hand on his. After weeks of small touches and lingering glances, this deliberate contact felt significant. We'll find a way, she said. Luke looked at their hands, then turned his palm up to hold hers properly. His skin was rough from work, but his touch was gentle. Why do you care so much? He asked softly. This arrangement, it wasn't what you wanted, it wasn't fair to you. Cassie considered the question. At first, I just wanted to be useful, to earn my keep. She paused. But now? Now? Luke prompted when she trailed off. Now I care about this place. About Sam. She met his eyes. About you. The admission hung in the air between them. Luke's grip on her hand tightened. Cassie, he began, but a crash from outside interrupted him. They both jumped up. Luke grabbed his rifle from above the door before stepping onto the porch, Cassie close behind him. In the yard, two of their best horses were gone, the corral gate swinging open. A third horse lay on its side, clearly injured. Rustlers, Luke said grimly, checking the fallen horse. Shot poor Buck in the leg to keep him from making noise. Miguel came running from the bunkhouse, gun in hand. I heard a shot, he called. Rustlers took 2 horses, Luke told him. We need to go after them before they get too far. I'll saddle up, Miguel said, hurrying to the barn. Luke turned to Cassie. Stay inside. Lock the doors. This might be Thomas's doing, trying to pressure us further. Be careful, she said, fear gripping her heart. He nodded, then surprised her by leaning in and pressing a quick, firm kiss to her forehead. I will. She watched as Luke and Miguel rode out into the darkness, following the tracks of the stolen horses. Then she went inside as instructed, checked on Sam, and locked every door and window. Unable to sleep, she sat in the rocking chair by the window, a shotgun across her lap, another skill Luke had insisted on teaching her. Hours passed with no sign of the men returning. Just before dawn, she heard hoofbeats approaching. Peering cautiously through the window, she saw Luke riding in alone, leading one of the stolen horses. Relief flooded through her, and she hurried to unlock the door. You got one back, she said, as he dismounted wearily. Found him abandoned about 5 miles south, Luke said, his voice tight with exhaustion. No sign of the other one or the thieves. Miguel's still tracking them. In the gray light of early morning, she could see a dark stain on his shirt sleeve. You're hurt. It's nothing, just a graze. But he winced as he led the recovered horse to the corral. Inside, Cassie made him sit at the table while she examined his arm. The bullet had indeed just grazed him, but the wound was dirty and needed cleaning. What happened? She asked as she gently washed the injury. Ran into 3 men with our horse. They fired first. His jaw clenched. I fired back. Did you hit any of them? 1, I think. They scattered after that, leaving this horse behind. He looked up at her. I recognized one of them. Peter Wilcox, Thomas's cousin. Cassie's hands stilled. You're sure? Certain. Luke's eyes were hard. This wasn't just rustling. This was a message. After bandaging his arm, Cassie made coffee while Luke cleaned his rifle at the table. The mundane morning routine felt surreal after the night's violence. What do we do now? She asked, setting a steaming cup in front of him. I'm going to town, Luke said. Going to talk to Sheriff Hayes about what happened and pay a visit to the bank. I'm coming with you, Cassie said firmly. Luke looked like he might argue, but then nodded. All right, we'll take Sam to stay with Rosa for the day. In town, they went first to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Hayes was a balding man with a drooping mustache who'd held his position more through habit than effectiveness. Rustlers, you say? He said, after Luke explained what had happened. And you think it was the Wilcox boy's cousin? I know it was, Luke said. I saw him clear as day. The sheriff scratched his chin. That's a serious accusation against a prominent family, McKenna. You got any proof besides your word? I've got a bullet graze and a stolen horse, Luke said, his temper rising. And Buck had to be put down this morning because of them. Well, I'll look into it, the sheriff said, but his tone suggested he'd do no such thing. Though I hear you've been having trouble making payments to the bank. Sometimes men get desperate when they're about to lose their land. Luke stiffened. What are you implying? Nothing, Hayes said, raising his hands. Just that folks might wonder if there were really rustlers or if it's just a way to explain selling off stock. Cassie laid a restraining hand on Luke's arm. Thank you for your time, Sheriff, she said coolly. We'll be going now. Outside, Luke was seething. He's in Wilcox's pocket just like half the town. Then we'll have to find another way, Cassie said. Come on, let's talk to the bank. The Copper Creek Bank was the grandest building in town, with polished wooden counters and brass fixtures. Inside, they were directed to the office of Gerald Wilcox, Thomas's father, and the bank president. Wilcox was a heavy-set man with the same handsome features as his son, though softened by age and good living. He smiled when they entered, but his eyes were cold. McKenna, he said with a nod. And the new Mrs. McKenna. What can I do for you today? You can explain why you're calling in my loan early, Luke said without preamble, and why your nephew is rustling my horses. Wilcox's smile didn't falter. Business decisions are just that, business. The bank needs to protect its investments during these hard times. And the rustling? Cassie asked. Wilcox turned his cold gaze on her. I don't know what you're talking about, young woman, but I'd be careful about making accusations without proof. We both know what's happening, Luke said, leaning forward. You want my land for the water rights. You're trying to force me out. What I want, Wilcox said, his voice hardening, is the money you owe this bank. $500 by the end of the month, or we begin foreclosure proceedings. It's quite simple. $500. It might as well have been $5,000 for all their ability to pay it. You're doing this because of me, Cassie said suddenly. Because Thomas is angry, I married Luke instead of coming back to him when he found out Eliza couldn't have children either. Wilcox studied her for a moment. My son's marriage is none of your concern anymore, Mrs. McKenna. As for the loan, this is purely business. It's personal and we all know it, Luke said, standing. But know this, I won't give up my land without a fight. Not to you, not to your son, not to anyone. As they left the bank, Cassie felt a mixture of fear and determination. $500 in 2 weeks seemed impossible, but the look on Luke's face, fierce, protective, undefeated, gave her courage. We'll find a way, she said, as they walked to their wagon. Luke helped her up to the seat, his hands lingering at her waist. We will, he agreed. As they drove out of town, Cassie noticed people watching them, whispering behind their hands. The banker's rejected bride and the struggling rancher, facing ruin together. Let them talk, she thought. We're stronger than they know. Back at the ranch, they found Miguel had returned, exhausted but with news. I tracked them to the old Sullivan mine, he reported. 3 men, like you said. 1 was wounded. They're holed up there with our horse, and 2 others that must be stolen too. Did you recognize any of them? Luke asked. Miguel nodded. Peter Wilcox for sure. And I think one might have been that fancy Easterner who's been staying at the hotel in town. The one who's always with Thomas Wilcox. Luke and Cassie exchanged looks. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just about spite or water rights. There was something more happening. The mine, Luke said thoughtfully. Why would they hide stolen horses there? Maybe they're not just after horses, Cassie suggested. Maybe they're using them to transport something. Like what? Cassie remembered something her father had once mentioned. Before the Sullivan mine closed, there were rumors they'd found a new silver vein but kept it quiet because of some dispute with the investors. Luke's eyes widened. And the mine borders my north pasture. If there's silver there, Miguel said, that would explain why Wilcox wants your land so badly. And why they're willing to play so dirty to get it, Luke added. That night, after collecting Sam from Rose's, they ate a quiet supper. The boy sensed the tension and kept looking from Luke to Cassie with worried eyes. Is something wrong, Pa? He finally asked. Luke managed a smile. Just grown-up problems, son. Nothing for you to worry about. But Sam wasn't easily fooled. Are we going to lose our home? The direct question hung in the air. Cassie looked at Luke, seeing the struggle on his face as he tried to decide how to answer his son. Not if I can help it, Luke said at last. I promise you that. After Sam was in bed, Luke and Cassie sat on the porch in the cooling evening air. The drought had even silenced the usual chorus of night insects, leaving an eerie quiet, broken only by the occasional lowing of cattle in the distant pastures. $500, Cassie murmured. Is there anything left we could sell? Luke shook his head. Not without selling so many cattle that we'd have nothing left to build back with, even if we keep the land. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. There might be one way, Luke said finally, his voice hesitant. I've been thinking about it all day. What is it? He turned to look at her, his face solemn in the dim light from the window. I could try to find proof of that silver vein. If it exists and it crosses onto my property, we could stake a claim. It would be worth far more than what we owe the bank. Is that legal? If it's on my land, yes. Mineral rights belong to the property owner out here. He ran a hand through his hair. But I'd have to go into that old mine, find where they're digging and prove it connects to our property. It would be dangerous. Cassie felt fear clutch at her heart. How dangerous? That mine was abandoned for a reason. Cave-ins, bad air. And if Wilcox's men catch me there... He didn't finish the thought. Cassie reached for his hand in the darkness. There must be another way. If there is, I don't see it. His fingers intertwined with hers. But I won't risk leaving you and Sam alone if the worst happens. So, I need to know something first. What? Luke turned fully toward her, his eyes serious in the starlight. If something happens to me, would you stay? Would you try to keep the ranch for Sam's sake? The question hit her like a physical blow. Don't talk like that, nothing's going to happen to you. But if it did, he persisted, would you stay, or would you go back to town, try to make a new life? Cassie thought about the ranch that had become her home, about Sam who called her Ma, about the life she'd begun to build here, and about Luke himself, this quiet, honorable man who had given her purpose and respect when the rest of the world saw her as worthless. I'd stay, she said softly. For Sam, for the ranch. She paused, gathering her courage, for what we might have been given time. Luke's grip on her hand tightened. Slowly, as if giving her time to pull away, he leaned forward. His lips met hers in a gentle kiss that deepened as she responded. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to fight for this, he whispered. For all of it. In the quiet darkness of the porch, with the vast starry sky above them and the land they both loved spreading out around them, Cassie believed him. For the first time since coming to the McKenna Ranch, she felt not just needed, but truly wanted, not as a replacement or a convenient arrangement, but as herself, Cassie, a woman worth fighting for. The next morning, Cassie woke to the sound of Luke moving quietly around the kitchen. She lay still for a moment, remembering their kiss on the porch, the way his lips had felt against hers. gentle at first, then hungry, as if he'd been waiting a long time to kiss her. When she entered the kitchen, Luke was at the stove frying bacon. He turned when he heard her, and something in his eyes made her heart skip. "Morning," he said, his voice warm. "Morning." She moved to stand beside him, closer than she normally would. "You're cooking." "Thought I'd give you a break." He flipped the bacon in the pan. "I've got a lot to do today." "The mine?" she asked, her voice dropping though Sam was still asleep. Luke nodded. "I need to see what they're up to out there. If there really is silver crossing onto our land, it could be the answer to everything. And if there isn't?" He didn't answer right away, focusing on the bacon sizzling in the pan. "Then we sell as many cattle as we can and hope it's enough," he said finally. "But I won't give up without trying every option." After breakfast, Luke saddled his horse while Cassie packed him food for the day. Sam watched from the porch steps, his small face troubled. "You coming back for supper, Pa?" he asked as Luke checked his saddle cinch. "I'll sure try, son." Luke knelt in front of him. "You mind Cassie while I'm gone, all right? Help her with the chores." Sam nodded solemnly. "I will." Luke turned to Cassie, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her again. Instead, he squeezed her hand. "If I'm not back by nightfall, don't come looking. Send Miguel to the sheriff instead. Even though the sheriff is in Wilcox's pocket, he may not help, but at least there'd be a record that something happened to me." His eyes held hers. "Be careful while I'm gone. Keep the shotgun handy." "You be careful too," she said, fighting the urge to beg him not to go. She watched as he rode away, heading north toward where the Sullivan mine cut into the hills that bordered his pastures. Fear settled in her stomach like a stone. The day crawled by. Cassie kept Sam busy helping her with chores, gathering eggs, watering the kitchen garden with the precious little water they could spare, mending a torn shirt of Luke's. But her mind was with Luke, imagining him creeping into the dark mine, confronting Wilcox's men, or worse, being trapped in a cave-in. By mid-afternoon, restlessness had gotten the better of her. "Sam," she said, "how would you like to go for a ride with me?" His face lit up. "On my own horse?" "Yes, on your pony. I thought we might ride out to where your pa keeps the cattle these days, just to check on things." It wasn't the only reason, of course. The cattle were being grazed in the north pasture, closer to the hills where the mine was located. She told herself she just wanted to be nearer, in case Luke needed help. They saddled Sam's pony and Daisy and rode out under the hot sun. The land was parched, the grass brown and sparse where it grew at all. They passed the nearly dry creek bed that marked the eastern boundary of the McKenna Ranch. "Pa says the creek used to run all year," Sam said as they crossed it, "before I was born. I'm sure it will again. Once the rains come back," Cassie said, though she wasn't certain. This drought had lasted longer than most. They found the cattle bunched near a small spring that still had a trickle of water. Miguel was there with one of the other hands, making sure the weaker animals got their turn to drink. "Senora," Miguel greeted her with surprise, "is everything all right?" "Fine," Cassie assured him. "Sam and I just wanted to ride out for a bit. Has everything been quiet here?" Miguel nodded. "No sign of trouble, and no sign of the boss either." He gave her a meaningful look. "He had business to attend to," Cassie said carefully, aware of Sam listening. "We should head back now. I want to start supper." As they turned their horses toward home, Sam pointed to the hills. "What's that, Ma?" Cassie followed his gaze and saw a plume of dust rising from the direction of the old mine. Riders, moving fast. "I don't know," she said, though her heart began to race. "But we should get home quickly." They urged their horses to a trot, then a canter, as they headed back to the ranch. The entire time, Cassie kept glancing over her shoulder, watching the dust cloud draw nearer. They had just reached the yard when 3 riders came into view, galloping hard toward the ranch. In the lead was Luke, bent low over his horse's neck. Behind him were 2 men she didn't recognize, their guns drawn. "Get inside," Cassie shouted to Sam, helping him down from his pony. "Now!" Sam ran for the house while Cassie hurried to the barn. The shotgun was in the house, but Luke kept a rifle in the barn as well. She grabbed it and loaded it with shaking hands, then ran to the edge of the barn where she could see the approaching riders. Luke was ahead of his pursuers by several lengths, but one of the men raised his gun and fired. The shot went wide, but it spurred Luke's horse to greater speed. Cassie raised the rifle to her shoulder the way Luke had taught her. She aimed not at the men, but at the ground in front of them, and pulled the trigger. The blast kicked against her shoulder, nearly knocking her back, but it had the desired effect. The pursuing horses shied at the explosion of dust in front of them, giving Luke more time to reach the safety of the yard. He dismounted in a rush, grabbing his own rifle from his saddle holster. "Get back," he shouted to Cassie. "Get in the house with Sam." Instead, she moved to his side, still holding the rifle. "Who are they?" "Wilcox's men," Luke said grimly. "I found what they're hiding in that mine, and they saw me." The two riders had pulled up 100 yards from the house, clearly reconsidering their pursuit now that Luke was armed and no longer alone. "What was it?" Cassie asked, her eyes on the men. "Silver." "Better," Luke said. "Gold. A whole new vein they've been mining secretly. And you were right, it crosses onto our land." Hope surged through her. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. I found the survey markers. They've been following the vein right up to our property line and probably beyond it." He glanced at her. "Where's Sam?" "Inside. I told him to hide." Luke nodded. "Good." He raised his voice to call to the two men. "This is private property. Turn around and ride out, or the next shot won't be a warning." For a tense moment, the men conferred with each other. Then, reluctantly, they wheeled their horses around and began to ride away. Luke kept his rifle trained on them until they were out of sight. Only then did he lower it, his shoulders sagging with relief. "Are they gone?" came Sam's small voice from the porch. "They're gone, son," Luke assured him. "Everything's all right now." But Cassie wasn't so sure. "They'll be back, won't they? With more men?" Luke nodded grimly. "Probably, but I've got what we need." He patted his jacket pocket. "Rock samples with visible gold, and I marked the exact spot where it crosses our boundary. It's our ticket out of this mess, if we can file the claim before Wilcox finds a way to stop us." "How do we do that?" "County Recorder's office in Silver Springs," Luke said. "It's a day's ride from here. I need to go first thing tomorrow." Cassie felt fear grip her again. "After what just happened, they could be waiting for you on the road." "That's why I need to go now, tonight," Luke said, "before they can organize. And I need to go alone. You and Sam will stay here with Miguel and the men." "No," Cassie said firmly. "We're coming with you." Luke started to argue, but she cut him off. "Think about it. If you go alone, they only have to stop one rider. But if we all go different routes, they won't know who has the proof, and they're less likely to attack a woman and child." Luke considered this. "It's risky." "Everything about this is risky," Cassie countered. "But we're in it together now." The look he gave her was filled with both worry and pride. "All right," he said finally. "We'll leave after dark. Pack only what we need." As night fell, they made their preparations. Luke sent Miguel to bring in the other hands from the pastures. 2 would accompany them on the journey, while the rest would stay to protect the ranch. Cassie packed a small bag with necessities for herself and Sam. The boy was excited about the night journey, not fully understanding the danger. "Like an adventure, Ma," he said, as she helped him into his warmest clothes. "Yes, like an adventure," she agreed, forcing a smile. "But you must do exactly as your pa and I say, all right?" Sam nodded, his face serious again. "Is it because of the bad men?" Cassie hesitated, then knelt to his level. "Yes, it is. But your pa is going to keep us safe, and this trip is going to help us save our home." "Our home." The words came naturally now. This place, these people, had become her home in a way Copper Creek never had been. Just before midnight, they set out. Luke rode with Sam in front of him on his horse. Cassie rode Daisy with the precious rock samples in her saddlebag. Miguel and the 2 hands would take different routes, meeting them at a predetermined spot near Silver Springs. The night was clear and cold, the stars bright overhead. They rode in silence, keeping to the shadows where they could, avoiding the main trails. Luke led them on a roundabout path, skirting far around Copper Creek town. Sam fell asleep against his father's chest, lulled by the steady rhythm of the horse's gait. Cassie watched them riding ahead of her, the man and boy who had become her family, and silently vowed to do whatever it took to protect them. They rode through the night, stopping only briefly to rest the horses and check their surroundings. As dawn broke, they reached a small copse of trees beside a dry riverbed. Luke reined in his horse. "We'll rest here for a bit," he said quietly. "The horses need water, and we could all use some food." They dismounted stiffly. Sam was fully awake now, taking in their surroundings with curious eyes, while Luke saw to the horses. Cassie unpacked some of the food she'd brought: jerky, hard biscuits, and a few precious apples. "How much further?" she asked as they ate. "Another 6, maybe 7 hours," Luke said. "We should reach Silver Springs by mid-afternoon if we don't run into trouble." As if his words had summoned it, they heard the distant sound of hoofbeats. Luke was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. "Get down," he whispered urgently. "Behind those rocks." Cassie grabbed Sam and pulled him with her to the shelter of a large boulder. Luke took position at the edge of the trees, watching the direction of the approaching riders. 3 men came into view, riding hard along the riverbed. Cassie's heart sank as she recognized Thomas Wilcox in the lead. "They're following our trail," Luke muttered. "We must have left tracks at the last creek crossing." The riders slowed as they approached the trees, clearly searching for signs of their quarry. Thomas raised his hand, signaling the others to stop. "They're here somewhere," he called out. "McKenna, we know you're hiding. Come out and we can talk this through like businessmen." Luke remained still, his rifle ready. "All we want are those rock samples," Thomas continued. "You can keep your worthless ranch. Just hand over the evidence of the gold vein, and we'll let you and your family go on your way." When no response came, Thomas's face hardened. "Have it your way. Search the trees," he ordered the other men. As the riders spread out, Luke caught Cassie's eye and motioned toward a break in the rocks behind them, a narrow path leading away from the riverbed. She nodded in understanding and began to edge backward, pulling Sam with her. Just then, one of the riders spotted them. "There!" he shouted, pointing. Luke fired a warning shot into the air. "Stay back!" he shouted. "Next one won't miss." Chaos erupted. The men drew their guns, firing toward Luke's position. Cassie pulled Sam tight against her, shielding him with her body as bullets struck the rocks around them. "Run!" Luke yelled to her between shots. "Take the path, I'll hold them off." "Pa!" Sam cried, trying to break free from Cassie's grip. "He'll be right behind us," Cassie promised, though her heart was in her throat. "Come on, Sam. We have to go now." She pulled the boy along the narrow path, glancing back to see Luke firing steadily, keeping the attackers pinned down. The path wound between large boulders, eventually leading up a steep hillside. Behind them, the gunfire continued, punctuated by shouts. Cassie and Sam scrambled upward, their breath coming in gasps. At the top of the hill, she paused, looking back toward the copse of trees. She could still see movement, but couldn't make out Luke among the chaos. "We need to keep going," she told Sam, though it tore at her to leave Luke behind. "Your pa will catch up to us." They continued along the ridgeline, moving as quickly as they could while staying low. The sound of gunfire gradually faded behind them. After what seemed like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, they reached a vantage point where they could see the path stretching back the way they had come. Cassie scanned the terrain anxiously, looking for any sign of Luke. "There," Sam pointed, his voice hopeful. A lone rider was making his way up the hillside following their trail. Even at a distance, Cassie recognized Luke's broad shoulders and the way he sat his horse. Relief washed through her, but her relief was short-lived. Behind Luke, 2 more riders had appeared, in pursuit. "We need to keep moving," she told Sam. "We need to reach Silver Springs before they catch us." They pushed on, following the ridgeline toward the west. The terrain was rough, slowing their progress, but at least they could see anyone approaching. When Luke finally caught up to them, his face was grim. "Thomas and one of his men are still on our trail," he said, dismounting quickly. "The other one won't be following." Cassie didn't ask what that meant. The hard set of Luke's jaw told her enough. "We need to split up," Luke continued. "They're after the rock samples. I'll lead them away while you take Sam to Silver Springs." "No," Cassie protested. "We stay together. It's too dangerous. This way." At least one of us has a chance of making it. He took the saddlebag from Daisy and removed one of the rock samples, pressing it into Cassie's hand. Take this. Keep the other in the saddlebag. That way, even if they catch one of us, the other might get through. Cassie wanted to argue further, but the urgency in Luke's eyes stopped her. She tucked the rock sample securely into her bodice. The recorder's office is on the main street in Silver Springs, Luke told her. You can't miss it. Just file a claim on the north section of our property, where it borders the old Sullivan mine. Show them the sample. What about you? Where will you go? I'll circle around, try to lose them in the hills, then head for Silver Springs by a different route. He looked at Sam. For you take care of your ma, all right? Do what she says. Sam nodded, his eyes wide with fear. You'll come find us, Pa? Soon as I can, son. Luke ruffled his hair, then turned to Cassie. Without hesitation, he pulled her into a fierce embrace. Be careful, he whispered against her hair. You too, she whispered back, clinging to him for a moment before forcing herself to let go. Luke helped Sam onto Daisy's back, then lifted Cassie up behind him. Head west, he said. Stay on the high ground as long as you can. It's about 10 miles to Silver Springs from here. With one last look at Luke, Cassie turned Daisy west and urged her into a trot. She didn't allow herself to look back again, afraid that if she did, she would turn around and ride back to him. Danger be damned. They rode for hours, stopping only when necessary to rest Daisy. The sun climbed high in the sky, beating down on them mercilessly. Sam remained brave, never complaining despite the heat and the hard ride. You're doing so well, Cassie told him during one of their brief stops. Your Pa would be proud. Is Pa going to be all right? Sam asked, his voice small. Cassie hugged him close. Your Pa is the strongest, smartest man I know. He'll be fine. She prayed she was telling the truth. By mid-afternoon, the town of Silver Springs came into view in the valley below them, a larger settlement than Copper Creek, with proper streets and buildings made of stone as well as wood. We made it, Cassie said, relief flooding through her. Now we just need to find the recorder's office. They rode down into the town, drawing curious glances from people on the streets. Cassie was aware of how they must look. Dusty, exhausted, a woman and child alone on a single horse. The recorder's office was easy to find, just as Luke had said. Cassie helped Sam down from Daisy, tied the horse to the hitching post, and took the boy's hand. Remember what your Pa said, she told him. This is how we save our home. Inside, a balding clerk looked up in surprise as they entered. Can I help you, Mom? I need to file a mining claim, Cassie said, summoning all her courage. On behalf of my husband, Luke McKenna. The clerk frowned. That's usually something the man of the family handles. My husband is delayed, Cassie said firmly, but the claim needs to be filed today. We have proof of gold on our property. She took out the rock sample from her bodice and placed it on the counter. The clerk's eyes widened at the visible veins of gold running through it. This was found on the north boundary of the McKenna Ranch, Cassie explained, where it borders the old Sullivan mine. We have reason to believe the vein crosses from the mine onto our land. The clerk examined the sample closely. This does appear to be genuine gold ore, he admitted. But I'll need a proper description of the property, proof of ownership, and the filing fee. Cassie's heart sank. I don't have the deed with me, but my husband, Luke McKenna, is the registered owner of the ranch 5 miles east of Copper Creek. Surely you have records of that. I'd need to check with the Copper Creek records, the clerk said doubtfully. Please, Cassie said, leaning forward. It's very important. People are trying to stop us from filing this claim. The clerk looked at her more closely, noting her disheveled appearance and the dirt smudging her face. What kind of people? Thomas Wilcox and his men, Cassie said. They've been mining gold illegally and followed the vein onto our property. They've threatened us, rustled our horses, and even shot at us to keep this quiet. At the mention of Wilcox, the clerk's expression changed. The banker's son from Copper Creek? I've heard stories about that family. He seemed to come to a decision. Wait here. I'll send a telegram to Copper Creek to verify the property ownership. If it checks out, we can proceed with the claim. Hope fluttered in Cassie's chest. Thank you. While the clerk was gone, Cassie and Sam waited anxiously in the office. She kept glancing out the window, watching for any sign of Thomas and his men, or she hoped desperately for Luke. "I'm hungry, Ma," Sam said after a while. "I know, sweetheart." Cassie dug in her pocket and found a piece of jerky left from their provisions. "Here. When we're done here, we'll find a proper meal." The clerk returned nearly an hour later. "Well, Mrs. McKenna, it seems you're telling the truth. The property is indeed registered to Luke McKenna. I can process your claim now." He pulled out a form and began filling it in. "The filing fee is $10. Cassie reached into her pocket for the money Luke had given her before they separated. She counted out 10 precious dollars and handed them over. "Now, I need you to show me exactly where on this map the gold was found," the clerk said, spreading out a survey map of the area. Cassie studied it carefully, trying to remember Luke's descriptions of where their property met the old mine. She pointed to a spot on the northern boundary. "Here, this is where the vein crosses onto our land." The clerk marked it, then had her sign the claim form. "There," he said when it was complete. "This establishes your husband's mineral rights to any gold found on that section of your property. No one, not even the Wilcox family, can legally mine there without your permission." Relief washed over Cassie so strongly that her knees nearly buckled. "Thank you," she whispered. "You should take this to the sheriff here in Silver Springs," the clerk advised, handing her a copy of the claim. "If what you say about Wilcox is true, you might need protection." Cassie nodded, tucking the document safely away. "We will, but first we need to wait for my husband. He should be coming to town soon." They left the recorder's office and found a small cafe nearby where they could watch the street while eating a much-needed meal. Sam fell asleep at the table after finishing his food, exhausted from the long journey and the tension of the day. Cassie watched the street anxiously as the hours passed, jumping at every horseman who rode into town. But none of them was Luke. As dusk approached, her worry deepened. Luke should have reached Silver Springs by now, even taking a roundabout route, unless something had happened to him. The cafe owner approached their table. "We'll be closing soon, ma'am. Do you and the boy have a place to stay tonight?" Cassie hesitated. "Is there a hotel nearby?" "The Silver Springs Hotel is just down the street," the woman said kindly. "Not too expensive and clean. You look like you could use some rest." "Thank you." Cassie roused Sam gently. "Come on, sweetheart. We need to find a place to sleep." "Where's Pa?" Sam asked sleepily. "He'll find us," Cassie assured him, hoping it was true. At the hotel, she took a small room with a single bed. Sam fell asleep almost immediately, but Cassie sat by the window, watching the darkening street below. Where was Luke? Had Thomas and his men caught up to him? Was he hurt, or worse? She touched the copy of the mining claim in her pocket. They had succeeded in filing it. Their ranch was saved, assuming they could keep the Wilcoxes from challenging it. But none of that would matter if Luke didn't return. A knock at the door startled her. Heart pounding, she approached it cautiously. "Who is it?" "Sheriff Davis, ma'am, Silver Springs Sheriff's Office." She opened the door to find a middle-aged man with a silver star pinned to his vest. "Mrs. McKenna?" he asked. "The clerk at the recorder's office suggested I check on you, said you might be in some trouble." "Yes," Cassie said, relief in her voice. "My husband and I discovered gold on our property, but the Wilcox family from Copper Creek has been trying to stop us from filing a claim. They followed us here. My husband led them away so I could file the paperwork, but he hasn't arrived in town yet." The sheriff's expression grew concerned. "When did you last see him?" "This morning in the hills east of here." Cassie fought to keep her voice steady. "He should have been here hours ago." "I'll send some deputies out at first light to look for him," the sheriff promised. "In the meantime, you and the boy should stay here. I'll have a deputy watch the hotel tonight just in case Wilcox or his men come to town." "Thank you," Cassie said gratefully. After the sheriff left, Cassie returned to her vigil at the window. The street below was mostly empty now. The businesses closed for the night. A few men stumbled from the saloon down the street, but no one who resembled Luke or the Wilcoxes. Eventually, exhaustion claimed her, and she dozed in the chair by the window. She dreamed of Luke, of his steady hands and quiet strength, of the way he had looked at her before they parted. "I should have told him," she whispered in her sleep. "I should have told him I love him." Morning came with bright sunlight streaming through the window. Cassie awoke with a start, disoriented for a moment before remembering where she was. Sam still slept in the bed, his small face peaceful. She went to the window and looked out. The street below was coming to life, with shops opening and people going about their business. And there, tying his horse to the hitching post in front of the hotel, was Luke. Cassie gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. He was alive, dirty, exhausted looking, with a bandage wrapped around his upper arm, but alive. She ran from the room, not bothering to wake Sam, and flew down the stairs. When she burst through the hotel doors onto the street, Luke was just turning toward the entrance. "Luke!" she cried, rushing toward him. His face lit up at the sight of her. He caught her in his arms, holding her tightly against him despite his injured arm. "You made it," she said, her voice breaking. "I was so worried." "I told you I'd find you," he murmured into her hair. "Did you file the claim?" "Yes, it's done. Our land is protected now." She pulled back to look at his face. "What happened to you?" "Your arm." "Just a graze," he said dismissively. "Thomas and his man caught up to me in the hills. There was a fight, but they won't be bothering us anymore." "Are they?" She couldn't finish the question. "No," Luke said, understanding what she was asking. "Just convinced that crossing a McKenna is a bad idea." "Where's Sam?" "Still sleeping. He was so brave, Luke. He didn't complain once during the whole journey." Pride shone in Luke's eyes. "Like his ma." The word sent warmth through Cassie's heart. She reached up and touched his face, dust-covered and weary as it was. "I was afraid I'd lost you," she whispered. "That I'd never get to tell you." "Tell me what?" he asked softly. "That I love you," she said simply. "Not because you gave me a home or because you're Sam's father, but because of who you are, because you see me as whole, not broken." Luke's arms tightened around her. "Cassie," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "I think I've loved you since the day you stood in my kitchen and didn't run from the mess you'd found yourself in. You're the strongest person I know." He kissed her then, right there on the main street of Silver Springs, not caring who might see. And Cassie kissed him back, pouring all her fear and relief and love into it. "Ma?" came a small voice from the hotel doorway. "Pa!" They broke apart to see Sam running toward them. Luke knelt down and caught his son in a fierce hug. "Hey there, cowboy." "You found us," Sam said, his face glowing. "Told you I would." Luke ruffled his hair, then stood, keeping one arm around Cassie and the other on Sam's shoulder. "Now how about we get some breakfast and then head home? We've got a ranch to save." As they walked to the cafe, Cassie felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. They still had challenges ahead, rebuilding the ranch, dealing with the aftermath of their confrontation with the Wilcoxes, finding a way to mine the gold on their property. But for the first time, she wasn't facing the future alone or unwanted. She had a family who loved her, not for what her body could or couldn't do, but for who she was, and that was worth more than all the gold in Arizona territory. The journey back to the McKenna Ranch took longer than the frantic ride to Silver Springs. Luke's injury, though not serious, slowed their pace. They traveled carefully, staying alert for any sign of the Wilcoxes, but the trails remained clear. "Do you think they've given up?" Cassie asked as they made camp on the second night, about half a day's ride from home. Luke poked at the small fire he'd built. "For now, maybe, but men like Thomas Wilcox don't stay down for long. That gold vein is worth fighting for." "But we have the legal claim now," Cassie said, tucking a blanket around Sam, who had fallen asleep beside the fire. "Legal claims can be challenged," Luke replied, "and the Wilcoxes have money and influence. Our fight isn't over yet." Cassie moved to sit beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "At least we're fighting it together now." Luke's arm slipped around her waist, drawing her closer. "Together?" he agreed. "Makes all the difference in the world." When they finally crested the hill overlooking the McKenna Ranch the next afternoon, Cassie felt a surge of emotion. The modest house, the barn, the corrals, it all looked so dear to her now. Home, in a way she'd never felt before. Miguel rode out to meet them, his face breaking into a relieved smile. "Gracias a Dios, we were starting to worry." "We made it to Silver Springs," Luke told him. "Filed the claim on the gold vein." "How are things here?" "Quiet," Miguel reported. "Too quiet, maybe. No sign of Wilcox or his men." But there's a rumor going around that the bank is calling in loans all over the county. People are scared. Luke frowned. Gerald Wilcox is making his move then, trying to get control of more land. What can he do now that we have the gold claim? Cassie asked as they rode toward the house. Plenty, Luke said grimly. He controls the bank. He can make it hard for us to get the equipment and men we need to mine the gold. He can challenge our claim in court, drag things out until we run out of money to fight him. The worry in his voice sent a chill through Cassie. They had won a battle, but the war for their future was far from over. The next few days settled into a cautious routine. Luke and the men kept a constant watch on the property, while Cassie tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for Sam. The boy seemed to understand the tension in the air, staying close to the house and watching the horizon with solemn eyes. Luke's prediction about Gerald Wilcox proved accurate. A week after their return, a letter arrived from the bank, demanding immediate payment of the full amount of the loan, not just the $500 they had initially asked for, but the entire $2,000 that Luke had borrowed to buy the ranch 3 years earlier. They can't do this, Cassie said, reading the letter over Luke's shoulder. Can they? There's fine print in the loan agreement, Luke said, his voice tight with anger. If the bank has reason to believe the borrower can't make regular payments, they can demand full repayment. It's meant for cases where someone's about to go bankrupt, but Wilcox is using it against us now. Because of the gold, Cassie realized. He knows we found it. But he's trying to force us off the land before we can use it to pay off the loan. Luke nodded grimly. And we can't mine enough gold quickly enough to pay him. Not without equipment and men, which costs money we don't have. So what do we do? Luke stared at the letter for a long moment. We need a partner. Someone with money to invest in the mining operation. Someone who'll stand up to the Wilcoxes. Is there anyone like that in Copper Creek? No, but in Silver Springs, maybe. Luke folded the letter carefully. I need to go back there, talk to some people, see if I can find an investor. I'm coming with you, Cassie said immediately. Luke shook his head. One of us needs to stay here with Sam. Keep an eye on things. He took her hand. I won't be gone long, 3 days at most. Cassie wanted to argue, but she understood the logic. Sam needed stability after everything that had happened, and the ranch couldn't be left undefended. 3 days, she agreed reluctantly. And then we figure this out together. Luke left the next morning, promising to return as quickly as possible. Cassie watched him ride away with a heaviness in her heart. Each separation felt harder now that they had acknowledged their feelings for each other. The first day passed quietly. Cassie kept Sam busy with chores and reading lessons, trying not to show her worry. Miguel and the other hands patrolled the property, alert for any sign of trouble. On the second day, Rosa came to visit, bringing fresh vegetables from her garden. Any word from the boss? She asked, as she helped Cassie prepare lunch. Not yet, Cassie replied, but he's only been gone a day. Rosa studied her face. You love him, she said simply. It wasn't a question. Cassie felt warmth rise in her cheeks. Yes, I do. Good. Rosa nodded approvingly. He's needed someone to love for a long time. Since Sarah died, he's been only half alive. But with you, she smiled. He's whole again. I know what that feels like, Cassie said softly. To be half alive, to be seen as broken. Rosa squeezed her hand. Neither of you is broken, just bent for a while by life's storms. Now you stand straight together. After Rosa left, Cassie thought about her words as she sat on the porch, mending one of Luke's shirts. She had been bent, not broken, by the doctor's verdict and Thomas's rejection, and somehow being sold to a stranger for the price of 2 colts had led her to find her true worth. The sound of approaching horses pulled her from her thoughts. She looked up, hoping to see Luke returning early, but instead saw 3 riders approaching from the direction of Copper Creek. Her heart sank as she recognized Thomas Wilcox in the lead. Sam, she called, keeping her voice calm. Go to the barn and find Miguel. Tell him we have visitors. Sam peeked out the door, his eyes widening at the sight of the riders. He nodded and slipped off the porch, running toward the barn where Miguel was repairing tack. Cassie stood, smoothing her skirts, and waited on the porch as the riders approached. She would not show fear, not to Thomas Wilcox. They reined in their horses in the yard. Thomas dismounted, dusting off his fine city clothes with exaggerated care. His face bore the marks of his encounter with Luke, a fading bruise along his jaw and a small cut above his eyebrow. "Mrs. McKenna," he said, his voice dripping with false politeness, "how domestic you look. Playing at being a rancher's wife suits you better than I would have expected." "What do you want, Thomas?" Cassie asked coolly. "My husband isn't here." "Yes, I know. We saw him heading toward Silver Springs yesterday. Quite convenient, actually." Thomas mounted the steps, but Cassie stood her ground, blocking his path to the door. "I've come with an offer from my father." "We're not interested in any offers from the Wilcox family." Thomas's smile tightened. "You might want to hear this one. My father is willing to cancel the loan on this property entirely. You and McKenna would own it free and clear." Cassie's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "In exchange for what?" "The mining claim, of course." Thomas reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. "We've prepared the papers. All you need to do is sign over the mineral rights to the gold vein and the ranch is yours, no more debt." For a moment, Cassie was tempted. The ranch free and clear. It would mean security for them, for Sam. No more fear of the bank taking everything. But then she thought of Luke, of how hard he had fought for that claim, risking his life to secure their future. And she remembered the gold itself, worth far more than the loan amount if they could find a way to mine it properly. "No," she said firmly, "the claim stays with us." Thomas's face hardened. "Don't be foolish, Cassie. You and I both know McKenna can't afford to mine that gold. He doesn't have the money for equipment or men. The claim is worthless to you without capital." "Then why do you want it so badly?" Cassie challenged. "Because unlike your husband, my father has the resources to develop it properly. We're offering you a fair deal, more than fair considering your situation." "Our situation is just fine," Cassie said, though she knew it wasn't entirely true. "And we'll make our own decisions about the claim." Thomas took a step closer, his voice dropping. "You always were stubborn. It's what I admired about you before." His eyes flicked down to her midsection, his meaning clear, before he learned she couldn't have children. Cassie felt the old shame trying to rise, but she pushed it down. "Before you showed your true colors," she finished for him. "Before I realized what kind of man you really are." Anger flashed in Thomas's eyes. "Be careful, Cassie. My father's offer won't stay open forever, and there are other ways to get what we want." "Is that a threat?" "A fact," Thomas said coldly. "McKenna's loan is due in full in 2 weeks. If it's not paid, we take the ranch, and the mining claim with it." "We filed the claim legally," Cassie argued. "It's separate from the ranch," Thomas laughed. "You think that matters? My father sits on the board that oversees the county recorder's office. Paperwork gets lost. Records get changed, especially when the claimants can't afford to fight in court." Miguel appeared from the barn, rifle in hand. Sam trailed behind him, watching the scene with wide eyes. "I think it's time for you to leave," Cassie said, drawing strength from their presence. Thomas glanced at Miguel, then back at Cassie. "Think about the offer. It's the best you're going to get." He tossed the papers onto the porch at her feet. "You have 2 weeks." He turned and walked back to his horse, his men following suit. As they rode away, Cassie's hands were shaking, but she refused to let it show until they were out of sight. "Are you all right, Senora?" Miguel asked, coming to stand beside her. "Yes," Cassie said, though her heart was racing. "But we need Luke to come home now." That night, Cassie couldn't sleep. Thomas's threats echoed in her mind, along with the impossible choice they faced. Give up the gold claim and keep the ranch, or lose everything trying to hold on to both. She sat at the kitchen table with a single lamp burning, reading through the papers Thomas had left. The legal language was confusing, but the essence was clear. They would sign away all rights to the gold in exchange for cancellation of the loan. It was tempting, so tempting. The ranch free and clear would give them security, a future for Sam. But Luke had risked everything for that gold claim. How could she give it up without even consulting him? The sound of a horse in the yard brought her to her feet. It was well past midnight, too late for a friendly visitor. She grabbed the shotgun from beside the door and peered out the window. Relief washed through her at the sight of Luke dismounting from his horse. She set the gun aside and rushed out to meet him. "Luke, you're back early." He gathered her into his arms, holding her tightly for a moment before releasing her. "I didn't like being away from you and Sam," he said, his voice tired but warm. "Especially not with the Wilcoxes planning who knows what." Inside, as Luke ate the cold supper she'd saved for him, Cassie told him about Thomas's visit and the offer from the bank. "Let me see those papers," Luke said, his expression grim. He read through them carefully, occasionally shaking his head or muttering under his breath. When he finished, he looked up at Cassie with fire in his eyes. "This is worse than I thought," he said. "They're not just asking for the mining claim. The fine print here gives them rights to all minerals on the entire property, plus an easement that would let them build a road right through the middle of our best grazing land." "So it's a trick," Cassie said, not really surprised. "A legal one, but yes." Luke ran a hand through his hair. "If we signed this, we'd keep the ranch, but they'd have the right to tear it apart looking for gold. Can they really overturn our mining claim if we don't pay the loan? Maybe, maybe not. But they can tie us up in legal battles for years, and we don't have the money for that fight." Luke sighed heavily. "I had some hopes of finding an investor in Silver Springs, but no one wants to go up against the Wilcox Bank. They're all scared of losing their own loans." Cassie felt despair creeping in. "So what do we do?" Luke reached across the table and took her hand. "There might be one option. I didn't want to consider it, but..." He hesitated. "The railroad is coming through about 10 miles south of here. They're buying up water rights all along the route." "Our creek," Cassie realized. "You're thinking of selling our water rights?" Luke nodded. "The creek's barely flowing now with the drought, but it's one of the few year-round water sources in the area. The railroad would pay good money for guaranteed access." "But without the creek, how would we water the cattle? How would we survive?" "We'd keep enough rights for the house and a small herd," Luke explained, "but we'd have to scale back the ranch operation significantly. It wouldn't be the same." Cassie thought about what that would mean. A smaller ranch, fewer cattle, a more precarious existence. But they would still have their home, and they would have the gold claim if they could find a way to develop it. "If we sold the water rights," she asked, "would it be enough to pay off the loan?" "I think so. The railroad agent I spoke with in Silver Springs suggested they might pay as much as $3,000 for primary rights to the creek. That would clear the loan and leave us something to start developing the gold claim ourselves, even if it's just on a small scale at first." "So we'd be betting everything on the gold," Cassie said slowly. "It's a risk," Luke admitted, "but I've seen that vein, Cassie. It's rich. Richer than anything they've found around here in years. If we can hold on to it, work it ourselves even in a small way, it could set us up for life, set Sam up for his future." Cassie thought of Sam, of the life they could give him with the security that gold would bring, and she thought of the ranch as it was, the home they had built together, the life they had found here. "What do you want to do?" she asked Luke. "This is your ranch, your dream." Luke shook his head. "It's our ranch now, our dream. I won't decide this alone." The simple statement warmed Cassie's heart. So different from Thomas, who had made decisions about their future without consulting her. Luke saw her as a true partner. "Then I think we should fight for both," she said firmly. "Sell the water rights, pay off the loan, and keep the gold claim. We'll rebuild the ranch around what we have left." Luke's face broke into a tired smile. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." The next day, Luke rode out to meet with the railroad agent, who had conveniently arrived in Copper Creek to negotiate other water rights in the area. Cassie stayed behind with Sam, anxiously awaiting news of whether their plan would work. When Luke returned that evening, his expression was hard to read. "Well?" Cassie asked as he dismounted in the yard. "The railroad agreed," he said. $3,000 for primary rights to the creek, with provisions for our household use and watering 100 head of cattle." Relief flooded through her. "So we can pay off the loan?" "Yes. I went straight to the bank and paid it in full." A smile slowly spread across Luke's face. "You should have seen Gerald Wilcox's expression when I counted out the money on his desk. I thought he might burst a blood vessel." Cassie laughed, the tension of the past weeks finally breaking. "So it's done? We're free of the bank?" "Free of the bank," Luke confirmed, pulling her into his arms. "And the gold claim is secure. I filed additional paperwork with a lawyer in Silver Springs to make sure the Wilcoxes can't challenge it easily." "What about the ranch? Can we make it work with just 100 head of cattle?" "It'll be tight for a while," Luke admitted. "But I kept $1,000 back from the railroad payment. That's enough to buy basic equipment to start working the gold vein ourselves. Miguel's cousin used to work the mines in Mexico. He knows how to set up a small operation. We won't get rich overnight, but we'll have a steady income while we build back the herd." That night, they celebrated with a special supper. Rosa and Miguel joined them, along with the other ranch hands. The mood was jubilant. They had faced down the powerful Wilcox family and won, at least for now. After everyone had gone and Sam was asleep, Luke and Cassie sat on the porch in the cool evening air. The stars were bright overhead, and a gentle breeze brought the scent of sage from the hills. "I never thought I'd end up here," Cassie said softly. "When my father told me he was sending me to marry a stranger, I thought my life was over." Luke took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against hers. "And I never thought I'd find someone to fill the emptiness after Sarah died. I just wanted a mother for Sam. I didn't expect to fall in love," Cassie finished for him. "Yes." He turned to face her in the darkness. "Cassie, I know our marriage started as an arrangement, but I want it to be real now in every way, if that's what you want too." Cassie's heart swelled with emotion. "It is," she whispered. "It's what I want more than anything." Luke reached into his pocket and pulled out something small that glinted in the starlight. "I got this in Silver Springs," he said, holding up a simple gold ring. "I should have given you a proper ring from the start. But back then we were strangers," Cassie said. "But not anymore." Luke slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had always been meant to be there. "Not anymore," he agreed. "Now we're family. For real." He leaned in and kissed her, a kiss full of promise and belonging. Cassie melted into it, feeling truly whole for the first time in her life. Inside the house, Sam's small voice called out, "Pa? Ma?" They broke apart, smiling at each other. "Duty calls," Luke said, helping Cassie to her feet. Together they went inside to comfort their son. The weeks that followed brought changes to the McKenna ranch. With their reduced water rights, they had to sell off most of the cattle, keeping only the best breeding stock to build back the herd over time. The creek that had once flowed freely through their property was now diverted mainly toward the railroad construction to the south, though they maintained enough flow for their basic needs. But as one part of their life contracted, another expanded. Miguel's cousin Javier arrived with knowledge of small-scale mining operations, and they began the slow process of extracting gold from the vein that crossed their northern boundary. The work was hard and progress was slow, but each small pouch of gold dust and nuggets represented freedom and future security. Thomas Wilcox and his father didn't give up easily. They tried legal challenges to the mining claim, but Luke's precautions held firm. They attempted to block the McKennas from selling their gold to the assay office in Silver Springs, but the railroad's arrival had brought new buyers to the area who were beyond the Wilcoxes' influence. Gradually, the pressure eased. The discovery of other gold deposits in the hills north of Copper Creek drew the Wilcoxes' attention away from the McKenna claim, which was rich but small compared to the larger veins being found. The bank, having lost its leverage over the ranch, moved on to easier targets. Life settled into a new rhythm. Luke divided his time between the small cattle operation and the mining work. Cassie managed the household and started a vegetable garden that thrived with their carefully rationed water. Sam grew stronger and more confident, helping with both ranch and mining chores, his silent watchfulness giving way to a child's natural curiosity and energy. And at night, Cassie and Luke shared the large bedroom that had once been Sarah's, their marriage now complete in every sense of the word. Sometimes, lying in Luke's arms, Cassie would think about the strange path that had brought her here, from a barren woman considered worthless by society to a wife and mother with a purpose and a future. One evening, about a year after their confrontation with the Wilcoxes, Luke came in from the mining site with a larger pouch than usual. He emptied it onto the kitchen table, where the gold nuggets caught the lamplight and glowed like tiny suns. "Our best day yet," he said proudly. That vein is getting richer as we go deeper. Cassie admired the gold, but found her eyes drawn more to Luke, to the strength in his shoulders, the smile lines around his eyes, the gentle way he ruffled Sam's hair as the boy examined the nuggets with wide-eyed wonder. "I was thinking," Luke said, sitting down at the table, "with what we've saved, we could start rebuilding the herd, or..." "Or?" Cassie prompted when he hesitated. "Or we could think about expanding our family in a different way." His eyes met hers, careful but hopeful. "There are children who need homes. Orphans from the Indian Wars or from families broken by hardship. The mission in Silver Springs takes them in, but they're always looking for good homes." Cassie's heart seemed to stop for a moment, then raced ahead. "You mean adoption?" Luke nodded. "I know it's not the same as having a child of your own, but..." "Yes," Cassie interrupted, tears springing to her eyes. "Yes, I want that." "Really?" Luke looked surprised at her quick response. "Luke, don't you see, it's perfect." She reached across the table and took his hand. "A child who needs a home, just like I needed one when I came here. A family made by choice, not just by blood." Sam looked up from the gold nuggets. "Would it be a brother or sister?" he asked, excitement in his voice. "We don't know yet, son," Luke said. "But what do you think? Would you like that?" Sam nodded enthusiastically. "I could teach them to ride and show them the gold mine and help them with reading like Ma helps me." Luke and Cassie exchanged smiles over his head. "Sounds like it's settled then," Luke said. "I'll speak to Father Daniels at the mission next time I'm in Silver Springs." 2 months later, they brought home 5-year-old Emma, a solemn little girl with dark braids who had lost her parents to fever. She was wary at first, watching them with the same careful assessment Sam had once used on Cassie. But the day she finally called Cassie Ma, the circle seemed complete. On Emma's first night in her new home after both children were asleep, Luke found Cassie standing on the porch looking up at the stars. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied, leaning back against his solid warmth. "Do you ever think about how strange life is? How the worst thing can lead to the best?" "Like being sold for the price of 2 colts?" Luke said, a smile in his voice. "Exactly." Cassie turned in his arms to face him. "If I hadn't been declared barren, Thomas wouldn't have rejected me. My father wouldn't have arranged our marriage. I wouldn't have you, or Sam, or now Emma. And I wouldn't have the woman who saved our ranch and gave us a future," Luke said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "The woman who showed me that family isn't just about blood or birthing children. It's about love," Cassie whispered, "about seeing the whole person, not just the parts that are useful to society." Luke nodded, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "And about finding worth in unexpected places, like gold in an abandoned mine, or love in an arranged marriage." He kissed her then under the vast Arizona sky. And Cassie McKenna, once unwanted and sold like property, felt the boundless worth of being truly, completely loved for exactly who she was. Inside the house, their children slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they were wanted, cherished, chosen. And on Cassie's finger, the simple gold ring caught the starlight. Not a symbol of ownership, but of partnership and a love freely given. In a land where women were often valued only for the children they could bear, Cassie had found her true worth. Not in her womb, but in her heart, her strength, her capacity to love. And in doing so, she had helped create something far more precious than any child of her body could have been. A family built on choice, on seeing the true value in each other when the rest of the world saw only what was lacking. A barren woman and a grieving widower, a silent boy and an orphaned girl, 4 broken pieces that, fitted together, made something whole and beautiful. A family. The end